Brushpoint Live. I'm your host, Kabukicat, accompanied by none other than Salongganisa, which is my
Well,
co-host for today. And of course, let us not forget DJ Lumpia, who will be in charge of our sound and visuals. And to everyone, welcome to Brushpoint. This is our demo, second part of our demo from last night. And before we start, I'm gonna go through a few details. Don't forget to visit our YouTube channel, which will link down below. And for everyone who missed this video, we will be posting it out there. And to our foreign audiences today, our podcast and interviews are mostly in Filipino, so I'm sorry, but our educational videos are all like
or for
available
everyone.
for everyone. Yeah, available for everyone. So yeah, and we will also have Q&A sessions at the end of the demo, so just keep your questions at hand, or just type them on the chat. And so, without further ado, let me introduce you guys our guest speaker, which is Sony Interactive Entertainment's principal artist, Daniel Cabuco.
Hi.
Woo!
Hello. Yeah. My name is Daniel Cabuco. I'm artist, art director. Been in the industry for 25 years.
Mhm.
Been a while. One of the things I'm most known for is Soul Reaver. It's a game I worked on back in 98, 99. Went through three iterations of it, and I started out as an environment and character artist or concept artist, and then I worked my way up to the art director position at Crystal Dynamics there. So the three iterations of the game, and just been applying design principles, and I'll occasionally lecture or I'll speak with other students and review portfolios and stuff like that. And tonight we are doing a deep dive into Soul Reaver.
Oh yeah. Before we start, we wanna give a shout out to Kirsten and to Neji. Of course,
And
we can't
there's
forget that. Okay.
great. Okay, so so where do we first question to begin this, right? Some
All
questions
right.
working in ahead of time.
All right. I'll start with one question. All right.
Sure.
Here's one question from one of our friends. With
Mhm.
most games during the PS1 era being very familiar, family friendly, and more on the light-hearted side, except for some games like Duke Nukem and Silent Hill, how did the Soul Reaver team approach finding the game's look and feel, since it has such a dark and mature atmosphere and so different from the rest of the games at its time?
Right. So very mature themes, but mature doesn't necessarily mean blood and guts. Mature can also mean uh, where you take the viewer or player, you take them seriously. You kind of assume intelligence on their part and create adult content that actually has gravitas. And so we took it as a form of of course, it's entertainment, but also the fact that we wanted to create something different from the traditional kiddie games we saw. I mean, as an emerging medium, it was nice to be able to actually make something serious and to be able to find the look of the game by approaching it with very mature eyes. And one thing we did as artists make conscious decisions to always take every aspect of the game seriously, to layer in symbologies and themes and deeper meanings the entire time. I mean, I learned so much, even on a literary standpoint, just working on the game because of Amy Hennig and learning from her and talking to the people and being able to incorporate what I knew already, because I have a kind of a nice, I have a literary background too. In school, I read, The Hobbit when I was in fourth grade. I used to read medieval weapons and warfare, and a lot of my ideas seem to fit in this genre, and we could make things happen with it that we couldn't in other genres. So that was part of the fun of it, was being able to do those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, finding the look. Hang on, I'm just gonna post this. I'm just gonna share another screen real quickly. I'm just gonna change over to environment. Okay, can you guys see this?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah. So part of it was trying to find a more film noir approach, or trying to look for something that has more aggressive, deep environmental meanings. Let's see here. Hold on. Here it is. Okay, so let me share this one real quick. I'm gonna share some more drawings with you guys.
Mhm.
So these are drawings that no one's ever seen before, other than people on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mhm.
So this, we were trying to find kind of a post-industrial City of Lost Children kind of look, because those are the things that we love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were set it so far in the future that it could be almost an anywhere kind of place. And this is before the rise of steampunk and those kind of things, or diesel punk.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
we had the ability, the kind of flexibility to pursue our interests. And
Mhm.
my own influences include artists like Brahm or Lebus Woods as environmental artists. And these kind of people had, in German expressionism, Gavin had Dr. Caligari, and these things all had influences on Soul Reaver and Shifter as it started out.
Mm.
So we were just taking it with a sense of like, hey, let's make something dark, something gothic, that's both gothic in feel and gothic in tone, and has like a lot of uh, different messages inside of it that we could layer together and find and just treat the viewer, first of all, as an intelligent, well-read individual. Just assume intelligence on their part, and
Mhm.
the things they don't know, they'll learn about.
Yeah.
And that was the question.
So well, the next question would be like, could you maybe share some interesting details about Shifter, or Soul Reaver's precursor title and its story, and what the its story that was influenced by John Milton's Paradise Lost?
Okay, that's a really specific example of a question. Uh, so we this is a chapel in Soul Reaver. One of the first textures I did. I
Mhm.
had Kain actually slash this thing and leave it behind, so it showed that he scratched it. So
Wow,
uh,
nostalgia.
Shifter was originally the game we were making. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't Soul Reaver at all. It was actually a different game, and we were heavily in the development for it. And it was basically a game where we were designing it to have the same mechanics as Soul Reaver, but not
Mm.
it wasn't tied to Legacy of Kain yet. So it was like we were talking about jumping into a spiritual world, having a fallen angel that possessed people in order to gain
Mhm.
foothold in the material realm.
Mm-hmm.
That was what Shifter was originally. Let me show you. And so we had original designs where oh, that's TIFF file. I wonder if it's not working. Hold on a second. I'm just gonna jump into some. Aha. Sorry, you have to share specific screens in Discord. Okay, so
Okay.
originally what it was you were this fallen angel, and you're supposed to possess other bodies in order to be able to uh, find purchase in the material realm. And so
Mhm.
there was ideas of angels in it, and that you were cast down from heaven, and that you were uh, trying to gain revenge or as a fallen angel. These are kind of like ideas we had with it, and that kind of dictated that the themes followed through.
Mhm.
So when you talk about Milton's Paradise Lost, there's also the idea of visions. One of the things about it was that Raphael, I can't remember now. Adam had visions of everything up until the Great Flood,
Mm.
and visions disturbed him, and they actually influenced the way that he acted from there forward. So one of the ideas we had in Soul Reaver was to have Kain know that his empire was going to fall. So once we were told, hey, you've got to shift this to Soul Reaver, shift this to Legacy of Kain rather. That's when it
Yeah.
became Soul Reaver, and that's when we decided that Kain would have similar visions. We'd have similar angelic themes. We didn't have to abandon it completely.
Mm-hmm.
We could actually take our time and actually go in there and actually design everything and take our time and actually carefully weave the narrative so that it matched those themes of the Gnostic hero, the false prophecies, the
Yeah.
what
Mhm.
you would do if you had all the time in the world but you still knew bad things were going to happen.
Oh yeah.
What would that shape your life? So these were Shifter was started out kind of like this with you know these kind of early design phases where we're just trying to figure out like what he looks like and move along those lines. And so Milton, basically, along with Captain Dr. Caligari and several other literary works, all had their influences on Soul Reaver's gothic narrative.
Hmm.
Yeah. Why did you like? Why did you guys shift from Shifter to Soul Reaver? What's the who made the decision? And if it's so, it's almost parallel, almost the same.
Uh, well, we had the license, and and marketing decided they wanted to make a safer bet. Um,
Hmm.
so they didn't want to necessarily waste, quote unquote, waste a franchise.
Hmm.
Hmm.
It was it was a decision from the heads of the studio that they wanted to try something a little more uh, safe with it because
Mm, okay.
when you talk about Shifter, it's some really crazy themes back in the day, especially for a PlayStation One game. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
King Worlds and stuff like that. And once we incorporated it uh, with Legacy of Kain, we found that there was a lot of parallels, and it was easy to actually do it.
Oh, I
So we had
see.
no problems with that.
Yeah. At the time, did you guys already thought that it would be like this big, or were you guys like very anxious of how it will be received by the audience or anything like that?
So I don't. This is the only time this ever happened to me. I kind of knew that we were working on something special, so it felt that way to me when I was working on it. And it's hard to explain why, but
Hmm.
I guess maybe it's the idea that there's nothing else even close to this in terms of maturity, and I'm maturity of form as a
Yeah.
medium,
Yeah.
drawing stuff like that. So for me, I wasn't nervous. I knew it was going to be it'll do well because it just resonated so deeply with me. It wasn't something where I was like, well, I don't know, this might work and da da da. It just had that kind of iconic look and feel that in terms of storyline, and we were able to suffuse it with iconic imagery, which was it took a while to find Razio, but
Yeah.
we got it.
Hmm. Okay. Um. Well, being a game that was originally its own IP and then later was converted into a sequel of Legacy of Kain, Blood Omen, what were the changes that the art team went through on converting and redesigning, and also integrating the existing characters from Blood Omen series and new characters and elements from Soul Reaver?
Oh, so what happened was
Mm-hmm.
we ended up changing some of the possession artifacts, although we ended up doing it in Defiance. But the possession of a body in order to the whole idea of Shifter was supposed to be that you can't actually exist in the material world. You'd have to jump into a body every time.
Mm.
So this time we had a consistent body, a consistent character that we could actually bring into the material world. So there were several changes along the way that basically uh, had to, tie into the deeper theme. But because we had already established the world of being like, kind of steampunk or not steampunk, but more like diesel punk, lost civilization, city lost children style, we decided to just put it in the far future. And after Kain, and made Kain the bad guy. And that was also a lot of fun because, um, we just simply took that theme of what if everything that you build over the centuries will eventually crumble? How would you act? What would you be? Would you turn into a debauched king? Would you become, um, you know, a deeper, uh, a deeper or more thoughtful kind of person? What would you do?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's part of the themes that we kind of dealt with. And so for you know this game, we ended up adjusting a lot of the imagery from away from angelic stuff and more
Mm-hmm.
towards vampire. And
Vampire,
that
yeah.
yeah, but again, it wasn't like beat you over the head kind of vampire designs. We actually thought we could do some really cool like stuff you haven't seen before.
Hmm.
And that
Yeah.
was there's original Shifter design idea where we had like the angel and stuff like that.
Wow, that that looks good. If you ask me.
Bodies destroyed, and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Um. So, what were your? I think you already answered this a while ago, but do you have additional inspirations that drove Soul Reaver's art direction?
Yeah, like one guy asks in our comments, Grant, did
Hmm.
Soul Reaver have any influence from the story of King Arthur and his knights?
There you
Well,
go.
I think every epic story that's ever been written has influence on us in terms of like knowing those things. There are details in the epic tales of King Arthur that are influential. There was Gilgamesh, even what's his name? One with Grendel. Gosh, what's his name? Slipping right now, but the one with Grendel.
Mm.
Those stories are something that influenced us as well, because we had to know those things and know them well in order to be able to confidently just push that forward. It's part of our ideas and part of our stories.
Well,
Yeah.
we have a lot of questions on the chat. Let me just pick a few.
All right.
Some of your friends are like saying hi.
Oh yeah. One thing I also noticed is if
Mhm.
you ever read the stories of King Arthur, you know about Excalibur. Everyone knows about Excalibur. It can cut through
Yeah,
anything.
yeah,
Yeah.
But there's also the idea of the thing you'd want to have more than Excalibur is Excalibur's scabbard, because whoever held the scabbard of Excalibur could not be injured physically.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So there's actually a thing where King Arthur loses the scabbard, and there's a story where he fights a knight who has the scabbard, and he understands why with Excalibur he can't hurt this knight, and he's getting hurt too, and finally he rips it off of the guy, and the guy's wounds open up, and he realizes he was wearing the scabbard of Excalibur. So
Mm.
I think it was lost later too, but it was, everyone talked about Excalibur, but the scabbard was way more powerful. You're invulnerable with that thing. And
Mhm.
that's sort of like the idea that people only know one aspect of these stories, and we thought maybe we could introduce new aspects or new ways of looking at things that maybe people didn't know.
Oh, that's actually pretty good. um, well, uh, Monica Erosova. Sorry if I butchered your name. She was asking if Raziel was supposed to have bones in his wings originally as a wraith, because one of the sketches has bones in the wings. So yeah.
Yeah, originally, and that's funny you're talking about the wings. I was about to talk about that. Originally, the bones were supposed to be, we thought about incorporating it into the arms, and so we had it actually like designed up into the arms and actually ripped off of the arms. But we decided that was way too complex for a PlayStation 1 game to look that way. Even the flapping wings was like kind of an idea that was like really kind of hard to do.
Mhm.
So we were limited by our ability to execute on stuff. So what we did was we set them sideways, and then honestly, because of the PlayStation 1 limitations, the bones inside of it wouldn't really make a difference. Uh,
Mm.
Yeah.
we realized that they should just flap around and like they were useless and destroyed, and that the bones didn't have any real let me jump to it real quick,
Purpose. Yeah.
purpose other than to make it stiff. And
Yeah.
when he was running around with stiff wings,
Mhm.
we didn't like it. Originally supposed to be like this kind of bone type thing coming out, and we thought about a bunch of different ways. So we we changed it, and yeah, you can see here like some of the evolution of it.
Yeah.
Uh, that was the original design. It was like maybe wings. We tried different things.
Mhm.
Some stuff worked, some stuff didn't. Once we decided we wanted flappy, then we went back to the what do you call it, the ruined
Drone, yeah.
Yeah.
moth-ridden wings. It's all destroyed. And then I had to come up with the wing design for Raziel's broken wing, his original wings, and the way when they're broken and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Mhm. There's
So,
look like
talking more about Raziel's design, Valina asks, how did you decide to leave Raziel only with the upper jaw?
yeah. I had the
So
same question.
well, that was so part of Raziel's design kind of was influenced by Madman. I don't know if you ever saw Madman. He's all pure white, and he looks a little bit has influence on Raziel. But part of the idea was to have something shocking when he rips off his mask, right? So when he pulls it off, it'll be like you will actually be like shocked at what's left of him. And so one of the ideas was that, hey, let's make the whole bottom of his mask his jaw, and that's what he has. And even how ruined to make Raziel's face was a discussion. Do we give him a nose? Ultimately, I see a lot of new designs or redesigns of Raziel, and they always rip off his nose. And I was like, well, part of playing a game as a character is kind of like there's a hero fantasy you have, right? Of being that character. And if you make a hero character too ugly, or you feel too sorry for them, you won't want to be that person, right? So there's a certain amount of hero transfer that needs to happen. So there has to be enough in Raziel to actually make you want to play him, but enough destroyed about him to give you a shock when he rips open. So it's supposed to be like when he opens up that mask, you're just totally shocked by like the fact that all you see is like all the space being drawn into his maw. And part of our aesthetic, part of my aesthetic when I draw is actually a lot of upper jaw type design stuff with nothing below it or something really big below it. That's just kind of the way I draw stuff. And so I have a shape design that actually kind of fed into this kind of shape design and kind of form set. So, and in this one we were playing with Raziel, how to make him like, do we make him like more pathetic? Do we have him like piecing things together from his old suit into his body, and then he just flips the cape over his face. And he ended up doing that in the game, but we were gonna have a lot longer of a sequence where he was actually piecing himself back together again with all the pieces of his armor and clothing and wrapping himself, it's sort of like Rambo style where cuts of him like wrapping his arms and then throwing his cape back on and stuff like that. And it was cool, actually. Actually, I can go down to let me jump real quick. And I've got more stuff to show. Don't worry, guys. I'm just like jumping in this. I'm just in a certain folder right now. There's one fun fact with Raziel that so this whole thing was supposed to be on his back, and it's actually on there in the PlayStation 1 version, but we ended up taking it off later, but for 2 and 3. But it's supposed to be this piece right here on Raziel's shoulder. You guys see that? Okay.
Yep.
So Raziel's shoulder piece was supposed to fall down, and then he was supposed to spread it across his back and form this kind of piece here, and actually wrap it around. So one of our ideas, art direction-wise, was to have simple form but detailed close-up pieces. So we were layering constantly with the bandages and stuff like that, and playing around with how different pieces would layer on him, along with the symbology and other aspects. So that was fun.
Those look really good, if you ask me. Kind of reminds me of Beksinski. No, just the render of the ripped wings.
Yeah.
Mm.
It was part of the fun. We had a lot of fun with these designs. We really did. It was like people who jumped into it were like just fascinated with what we were able to do. And this is like the wing design we ended up with finally, where actually having it unfold and actually anchor below the base of his spine, or right at the base of his spine, which is most wings are angled or anchored up here between the shoulder blades. He put it lower, and it actually looked really cool when it was lower like that.
Yeah, it looks badass, if you ask me.
Yeah,
it's like
a shape design language. This is one of the things we talked about in design earlier. Is that there's a shape language that you can use, and you can find the shapes, with a certain kind of exploration methodology, and apply those shapes recursively throughout your entire character and your entire world.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense to me because you give me that advice every time.
Yeah. Do you want to share a bit of like your top or favorite moments while first play testing the game? That'd be cool to dive
Yeah,
in.
there were a lot of really cool moments playtesting the game. There was let me think about this for a second. Okay, so there's one time when I was playing with Raziel, and we'd had his mechanic where he picks up objects basically by holding his hand out, and he kind of magnetically pulls things to his hand. Well, that mechanic actually was turned on, and it was hang on, I'm just gonna pop something up real quick. I'm on a different folder. Hang on.
I think
And
that
what
was
happened was,
also my favorite part of the game when I was playing it, like picking up items from the walls, magnetically like lifting up everything. It's pretty cool.
yeah. So part of the fun of that was that we could incorporate the spears into the actual architecture, and so you could
Mm.
hide it there. And when I first did that and set it up, and incorporated it, we showed it to the whole team, and I was like, hey, where are the spears supposed to be at? I'm like, walk over to the edge of that fence that looks like a bunch of jagged spears, and it's actually just an old Gothic fence. And then I reached out with my hand and I plucked the piece of it off that became the spear. And it was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's so cool. And then when we were running around, one of the vampire hunters fired a crossbow bolt at me, and I happened to be picking up a spear, and I caught the bolt in my hand. And I was like, oh, we got to keep that. And they're like, no, 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 that'd make it too easy to fight these guys. You wouldn't be ever be damaged. I'm like, come on, it'd be cool. But it was really sweet to see that happen. It was really cool to
Yeah.
see shift. The first time I shifted in the game, it was awesome. It was just something you've never seen or could expect to see in a PlayStation 1 game. Uh, Even today, they don't really do it that much in other games. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
I think the running joke was that if the engineers knew how hard it was to do, they wouldn't have let us do it.
Mm. Yeah, now that I think of it, like that is pretty like advanced from a PS1 console. Like the geometry of everything, of the terrain and everything, the changes, it's just so huge compared to like what the console could possibly handle. So it's like it's just really massive.
Right, right. There was yeah, that was the thing. It was very. I mean, on the surface, it's simple. What we actually did was we went from A to B morph, and
Mm.
Okay.
that's all it was.
Mhm.
But it, we could do so much with it. It was so powerful, especially with this new PlayStation medium where everything's suddenly in 3D. It just opened up so many doors and so many ideas for us. That was cool.
So, like you're showing Kane right now. So, with Kane being already designed and established in Legacy of Kane Blood Omen, how did the art team take on the challenge of evolving his design?
So one of the ideas I had was arrogance, right?
Mhm.
Kane is an arrogant. He was arrogant as a human being. He was arrogant as a vampire in Blood
Mhm.
Omen. Uh, he was contemptuous of most everybody, people and stuff like that. So one of the ideas was to have him think of himself as a god later and actually become
Mhm.
very
Yeah.
very arrogant. So one of the thoughts I had was to grow the bones around his face into actual crown, a crown of bone.
Oh yeah.
And it reflected his arrogance, right? And one of the things we had was because of Vorador and the way that he had evolved in Blood Omen from not looking human at all. He ended up looking really like kind of animalistic. So we said, hey, how would you evolve this guy? How would you age somebody, thousands of years, and how would they look?
Mhm.
And how would you be able to make them, stand and feel? And what if you could shape your body over the years? What kind of things would become apparent? So we kind of took that as the aesthetic and said, let's have him be able to evolve himself and change his body around and stuff like that. This is very early. This is this is back when we made Vordor's. I didn't know what Vordor's earring looked like when I first started this, so it looked really dumb. But later it turned into the blade thing, which was correct, which is this one.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, but we had placeholders and stuff. But yeah, so basically, just to talk about it real quickly. I took the zygomatic arch of the face and I pulled that up and forward. I tried to make the crane. We tried to make it a little more subtle too. So we actually wrapped it around the shape of the head. We wanted to look old without being old, frail.
Mhm.
So like an older lion looks awesome, right? They look
Yeah.
grizzled and powerful. So we had Kane actually have his hair grow long and white, but also grow. And the only way I could go was towards his forehead. I couldn't go any other way. I mean, you can make his hair as long as you want, but there are limits to how old that makes you look. But if you grow it forward and actually grow the head around it, it actually changes him entirely in the way he looks. So that was kind of one of the ideas we had. Was like just we wanted him to have a different look to be able to show his age, but
Mhm.
also not be frail.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that Kane evolved along those routes. Basically his arrogance was actually what made his body change.
Mhm.
And this right here is the first drawing I did where Amy looked at that drawing and said, "That's Kain." And I said, "Oh, cool, we found it," because it took a lot of drawings. There's a lot of not showing, so just tons of like throwaway drawings
Mhm.
that didn't work. But also things like incorporating his Vorador's earring was something that we talked about. We wanted to carry symbologies from Blood Omen into Legacy of Kain. This is the actual texture for Kain from original Soul Reaver. This is the actual texture for the character. Way bigger than it normally would be. Actually, each of these was cut into 64 by 64 pixel sections and mapped individually.
That is so cool. Oh.
And so, yeah. And we actually would put these like gradations here to force the color picker to give us enough resolution along these grades. Because we had a color compression tool that would actually compress our colors. But if you didn't have this gradation here, it would only take the colors that you thought it needed, and then it would pixelate and downsample everything. But if you put a gradation inside of it next to it, when you crunched it, it would take these colors into consideration and actually force more resolution along this line and drop things like the blues and the greens, stuff like that. So it would drop solid colors and give you. It was a really smart algorithm. As long as you could trick it. That's the thing. It was you could trick it in a good way. And so we actually had this. And actually, one other thing I had with Kain was I replayed Blood Omen, looked at it for a while. And one of the things that was intriguing was that when Kain died and became a vampire, he was impaled with a sword. So I wanted to keep that theme. So I actually put the scar from his impalement. There's the one thing that didn't heal ever. And it came to represent his actual corruption. Because if you remember the storyline, he was in the womb when Nuke Raptor's blast actually hit the entire Circle of Nine, including Kain, because he was supposed to be the Balance Guardian still in the womb after Ariel had died. So what happened? Let me just go back real quick. Ariel died. Ariel was the Balance Guardian, and there's always a new Guardian being born if one dies. Ariel was murdered. Kain in the womb was supposed to be the next Balance Guardian. But Nuke Raptor, upon discovering Ariel's death, went mad, psychoblasted the entire circle, and damned them all to corruption, which also included Kain. So the symbol of his corruption was this scar right here. And in Legacy of Kain Defiance, we actually got rid of it. It actually went away to show his healing. And that was part of the idea of it, symbology of it. Symbology is super important in our game. I can't emphasize enough how important symbology is.
I mean, even the earrings, right? It has a symbol, so.
Yeah, exactly. And let me show you really quick. Actually, we get that. Do you have another question, or we talk about symbols?
More about the design. I have a question. Like, what were the key guidelines the art team went by when creating the designs for Soul Reaver's characters and creatures?
So the key guideline was we had to show a world that was. We wanted to go and make things different, right? Everybody has an idea what a vampire looks like. Sharp teeth, looks like a person. We wanted to go in a different direction. We wanted to show enemies that were actually quite different. And actually, I'm going to jump over these real quick. I'm going to switch screens now to another one. Oh boy, my Discord. Hold on just one second.
Okay.
Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, we could hear you loud and clear.
Sweet.
Oh, there you go.
Right. So we want enemies that were aquatic, enemies that were just different from what you saw in the standard fare.
Yeah.
Let's see, these are demons, vampires. Good old Mobius. Yeah, so we want enemies that were different, shaped differently. So part of our idea was to push the shapes and form design. One thing we incorporated into it was debauchery and bondage, simply because if you're a vampire and you live thousands of years, you get bored and you want to try different things. And so and pain doesn't mean anything because you can regenerate instantly. So we would have these vampires stapling or pushing bolts into their skin. They didn't care. It didn't matter if it hurt because it looked cool. It was different.
Yeah.
So we explored. Brahm was instrumental to me in a lot of this stuff. I loved Brahm's designs, and so I always looked at his stuff. It kind of incorporated that kind of feel. And so the idea was to do something different, to do something with a sensibility of shape and form and design that was easy to read.
Mhm.
But once you got up close, you actually saw the details and saw it was different.
Hmm.
Yeah. We have
And
one question.
resonates too. Yeah.
We have one question from Silas Varulven. I'm sorry if I butchered that name. Was
Still, yeah, I know.
yeah, okay. Was Zephan supposed to look like a xenomorph queen? Or is that a mere coincidence? Okay.
Was that one supposed to look like who?
A
A
xenomorph
xenomorph.
queen.
A xenomorph.
Yeah.
Xenomorph queen.
Yeah.
It's a good question. I mean, it creeps in there. Design elements creep in there.
Mhm.
You know, there's all kinds of stuff. Whenever you design something, you draw from things you know and things you love. You can't simply say in a vacuum that I'm just going to design this unique creature that's never been seen before. Da, 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 da. So you can't really do that. You draw from what you know. And at the time, we did that with Soul Reaver. We drew from what we knew. We knew. There's a shape language. There's an abbreviated shape language you can use when you're talking about certain things too. So you get the chance to draw from that. Hold on, I'm gonna bring up Zephon real quick. And so your reptile brain has certain shape language to what's dangerous, right? So Zephon was insectoid, and so you draw upon the shape language of dangerous insect.
Yeah.
That's how he worked, So he was very, very aggressively insectoid, but also we mixed stuff like his textures and stuff like that. We mixed stuff like what's scary about insects, right? If you look at insects, they do horrible things to each other. They'll inject eggs in living creatures. They'll actually cocoon them and eat them alive. They'll overtake their space. They're parasitic. So all of these ideas had to be incorporated, and so that's part of what Zephon's shape language was, and so that's part of the what we use too. I wouldn't say it was exclusively consciously chosen to be like a xenomorph queen. At the same time, I wouldn't say it wasn't an influence because obviously there are similarities.
Yeah, like from Geiger and a lot of that. Seems very
His face splitting was, we took it one step further than just a mouth splitting. Face split. Oh, speaking of face splitting, hang on, I'm gonna show you guys something real quick. More stuff that people probably haven't seen before.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, people would love to see that. I would love to see that, honestly.
Where are they? They're here somewhere. Oh, here they are. Yeah, I'll show you guys this. This is pretty cool.
There's a follow-up question.
One thing we thought was
Mhm.
for Kain to have brides.
Mhm.
So we kind of did, we gave Kain his brides and stuff like that. And we wanted to have their faces split open, and actually become like this crazy, like multifaceted thing. So at first you think, oh, a beautiful woman, kind of cool. And then see your face is like, wow. You
Oh
see
yeah.
like
That
the
is
kind
so
of crazy
cool.
demon
Yeah.
thing.
Super like that.
Yeah, that part of that's Predator, part of that's Alien, part of that's that's how our shape design works. That's how you iterate on it. It's you stand on the shoulders of giants, and you add your unique flair to it, and just give it a try. Like, ultimately, this idea didn't fly because we just didn't have enough time to make extra characters.
Wow, that's really good. I really like this one. One of my faves.
Yeah. Boom.
That is so cool.
Gameplay ideas too for Raziel. Like him actually able to do a floating slam was one idea.
Mhm.
Doesn't work. Discarded stuff.
Daniel, we do have a
Yeah.
follow-up question about Zevon. Is he supposed to phase in and out of a spectral realm? As this happens in the game, was it because he's part of the room itself now?
Yes, exactly. He's part of the environment itself. So he actually
That's a
stopped
really good
being
question.
even a singular being.
Mhm.
Hmm.
colony was growing into him. He was becoming part of the Silence Cathedral. He is, he had evolved to actually become the room. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really good concept. Creepy, if you ask me. That's really
Yeah, you wanted to be able to do stuff like that.
hmm
We thought Beast Form Kain, that was another idea we had.
Yeah. So talking about more on environment, how did the environment artist tackle designing the architecture of the world of Soul Reaver? One asks that what were you guys smoking when you designed the giant swirling vortex lake with the Lovecraftian elder god beneath it?
What didn't we smoke? We were all no. What
Okay.
we were doing was again, this wonderful opportunity to actually inject your own aesthetic into a world, and if you have that opportunity, by God, grab it with both hands and don't let go. You gotta go with whatever you can. So one thing we
Yeah.
had was there were environments from Blood Omen that we we thought, let's bring that back, like this giant skull that was like from some kind of unknown giant and
hmm
formed the actual part of the world. Um, so the environment artists were basically tasked with making a new kind of world, a world that actually felt like lost technology. Like
Hmm.
there was once a great world around us that was actually much more technologically advanced, and all that knowledge had been lost. Like how to blacksmith or how to do proper masonry and stuff like that.
hmm
The idea was that we were building something that looked like it had once been great, but then the knowledge had been lost.
Yeah. Okay. Is it if I would ask, is the technology as old as Cain himself, or is it older than him?
So the thought was that there was a height of human technology that actually ended up happening during Cain's time, and
Okay.
then Cain caused the downfall of man, or was at least man is also responsible for his own downfall. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, but
Yeah. Yeah.
Cain established his empire to kind of set up a sanctuary against that to eventually take it over.
hmm
I mean, so even things like giant steel structures with like these things coming out of it. One thing that was wonderful about our level artists, and if any of them are listening, it's shout out to these guys. They were all architects, or just architecturally trained, and so
Okay.
they knew how to build things like. And that's something that I didn't see often in games. I see a lot of like doors and windows back then that were just slammed into the side of a wall that had no regard for proper spacing,
Yeah.
Okay.
rhythms of design. And now
hmm
these are more important than ever today. But luckily, we're more used to seeing it integrated. But back in the PlayStation days, we didn't see it often. Modular design from ancient architecture. I think being surrounded in a postmodern world that we are today, we don't see things like formalized entrances with like really nice arch designs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Really, what we see is like it's a square building with a featureless square door stuck inside of it.
Yeah.
But if you look at like Europe's architecture is fantastic because it's older. It actually has like more formalized entrances and exits. I call it like celebrated edges, where when things meet, they don't just meet; they're actually wonderfully designed and set up so that they actually have kind of a formalized uh, border.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of them. Yeah.
Okay. So oh, we have like another question here. Since technology. Oh, was this done already? Since technology at the time was very limited, how did the team tackle creating two variants of the maps and props in the
Yeah.
game
We
when
kind of like went over it, but yeah, keep
okay
going.
when Raziel shifts between the physical realm and spirit realm? Like, how did you guys make the two variants of maps and props? Because there's like two different realms.
Okay, so here's the thing: people don't realize about the PlayStation One version of the game.
Mhm.
We used 4-bit color, which means 16 colors on the textures.
Hmm.
And we actually used the vertex lighting to actually light the world. So that the texture itself we had the technology to shift the textures, but we just didn't have the memory bandwidth. Everything that we do for the textures was actually fitting in a 4 megabytes of RAM. That's all we had. And so, oh, sorry, I need to share that
Oops.
screen.
Yeah. Oh. 4 megabytes. That's like
Yeah,
a
4 megabytes of RAM. So when it came to the technology, we were so limited that we didn't have much time, so much space. So basically, what we did, we had to crunch the textures down to almost grayscale, or at least a very limited color scale. And then what we would do was light it with vertex lighting, in which case we would take the vertices and actually add RGB values to them.
Yeah.
And so we would switch between what we call a normal value, either 0 or maybe a little bit of like, if it was a brick pattern, we'd make the red brick on it, like just slightly red, to the spectral realm, which is more blues and greens, like outrageously blue and green. And then we had the ability to actually morph the values and actually cycle them, so we can make the world feel like it's underwater. And that was one of the art directions we had for the spectral world. I had to feel like time had stopped and you were underwater. That was kind of the idea of why it was blue in that world.
Does that explain why Rachel is blue?
That's one of the reasons. It also looked very different from the material world. It had looked like the cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Everything got twisted in the spectral. My saying was, it's not an evil realm; it's a realm of truths and trauma. Trauma is recorded in that realm.
So speaking more on the limitations of the technology during the console times, how much of the game content was changed or cut due to the limitations of the technology?
I can't even quantify how much was limited or changed. Everything was changed. Some of the stuff we thought was for sure was going to work didn't work. I call my ideas my babies, and every game is littered with dead babies. Basically, your ideas got discarded, or things didn't work, or things you thought would be a good shape design ended up not working for the game itself. And we tried different things, like I want to have enemies that coalesce together and become one giant shadow form, and then that wasn't gonna work. Technology didn't show that. So fun idea, but nah, that wasn't gonna happen.
Oh, there's a follow-up question for that from Matthias. He said like was there ever a design order that came down from the higher ups that didn't get all the way with your vision of Soul Reaver?
Was that to say that did somebody impose an idea on Soul Reaver from up
Yeah.
above?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but didn't
that
make the
didn't
cut. Yeah.
no, from the higher ups that didn't get didn't get at all with your vision of Soul Reaver.
Well, okay, there's two
Didn't
things. Well,
Okay.
aside from the initial, you have to make this blood omen. It's like, okay, we have to actually put it in the Legacy of Kain world. That's different.
Mhm.
No, I think they left us alone at the beginning because they didn't know what Soul Reaver was. They didn't know what Shifter was. So marketing and stuff like that, and those guys, and at Crystal Dynamics at the time back then, marketing was very closely aligned with the heads of the studio, so they could actually tell him. They would actually decide like, oh, this will work or this won't work. We get this, we don't get this. They didn't get Soul Reaver at all. If you ever look at the first ads for Soul Reaver,
Mhm.
it's Darwinism. It's a funny Darwinism ad of people dying.
Mm.
But at least they get to keep their soul. That was what they said. So
Mhm.
because they didn't understand Soul Reaver, what happened was they marketed it like Gex, and so
Mhm.
they made these funny, weird ads that were kind of like PlayStation, bump, and
Yeah.
so one thing that they did do that to this day still pisses me off, and if you ever talk to me about it, I'm triggered, is they put Doc Martens on Raziel
Uh-huh.
and put that in an ad
Oh
because
my
they
god.
thought they didn't understand his boots. So they
Oh,
thought if we market him with Doc Martens,
Doc
people will
Martens.
like him and understand him better.
What? Oh my goodness.
Oh my
They
Yeah,
god.
we're
really didn't
oh,
understand it. Yeah,
I
so
was too young to see that, but man, I'm glad I didn't see that at all.
you can still find it if you look it up. So there's a
Yeah.
picture of Raziel. And oh my God,
Do
I'm
you have
triggered
it
every time. My
there?
friend my friend Diana brings it up all the time just to
Okay.
get underneath my fingernails, and it's murderous. But
Oh
yeah,
my god.
it's definitely something where there were ideas of like, hey, but other than that, they left us alone because they didn't understand it, which was kind of a lucky thing. Because once they get popular, and after the first game, we got a lot more involvement
Mhm.
from marketing and trying to add things and change things around, and maybe you got could you add this or not add that, or you know they tried to make the things they didn't understand and the things they did understand, things we don't to things we do, and that's where we were like, nah, that doesn't work for us. And luckily we were pretty well liked by the heads of the studio, so we were
Okay.
kind of given, and Amy especially, and she was giving carte blanche to be able to say no, that's not going to work for our world.
Oh, wow.
You know,
That's a really good privilege.
unlike Tomb Raider, which had a lot more like, hey, let's put a Jeep Commander in this, or let's put a Ducati Monster in this. But
Mhm. Um, I have another question from Grant Hamilton. He said, like, did the team consider bringing back any of the murdered members of the Circle of the Nine for Rachel to fight?
right. So did we consider having any of the?
Murdered members of the Circle, yeah. Bring them back to be a boss or something, probably. If fought by
No,
Rachel.
I don't. Not really, because you already killed them once in Blood Omen, and so the thought of bringing them back as enemies you fight, other than Malik and Mobius and stuff like that, wasn't, and even Mobius wasn't really a boss fight.
Mm.
It was kind of old hat, because where we're at, by the time you get to them, you're a very, very old and advanced vampire, and the circle was used to taking out like very young fledgling vampires. And the
Mhm.
idea was like, maybe you could fight them, but what kind of fight would that be? And would it be satisfying? And would it serve the narrative?
Mhm.
And for us, it didn't really serve the narrative, because for Soul Reaver 2, it was fun to tangentially hear and see the murder, the slaying of the Circle of Nine, but
Mhm.
it didn't really fit the narrative to actually have to fight any of them. Uh, Even Mortinius, you don't really fight him. It's just fun to interact with it instead of having to actually go toe to toe with them, because it really wouldn't be much of a fight, and it wouldn't
Yeah.
feel that satisfying. You already fought them in Blood Omen, and you already killed them as an idea, and so all we would be saying was, "See, we can do it better on PlayStation," and that's not really the reason to put all that effort into it.
Okay. Um, there's another question from Ez Hoff. He said, like, was the original shifter design influenced by Darkman? This was like we're through with the shifter, but we just had this question. We just saw this question now. Yeah. So if we have to go back to shifter.
No, that's fine. It goes back to the original question of, were you influenced by anything? And of course you are. You're going to be influenced by something. I'm not sure if Darkman necessarily by himself, but I know, uh, you know, Madman. Uh, there were some ideas, I guess, stuff from earlier comic serials, in the 40s,
Mm-hmm.
that we were looking at that we thought were cool.
Comic serials. Okay.
Yeah, everything was an influence. At the same time, you try to make your own statement about it. So it's hard to say like this or that was a particular influence. It's more like, what did we do to um, weave our own designs, and was this an influence? Sure, everything's an influence. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of draw from the things that, I always say this in design, that you have to have uh, a lot of reading and a lot of visual input in order to get something out of your brain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? So in order to be able to put something out there, you have to put good stuff in your brain. Otherwise, it won't work.
Yeah. So talking more about inspiration, Dexter, you asked, in your gaming career, was there any that had a deep influence on you, or was your favorite person to work with?
Well, Amy Hennig, I really enjoyed working with Dexter Yu, but he's actually really, really evil. So, I mean, I've had a lot of luck being able to work with some great people. Kevin Chen is fantastic to work with. Carlo is great to work with. Um, and shout out to Dexter. He's actually a really good friend of mine, who I got a chance to work with. I really love working with him as well. Um, and there are other, like Kojima. I got to work with. That was fun.
Wow.
Being able to talk to him about design and what he liked, and joke around with him and
Mhm.
wear Wonder Woman's bracelets. That was funny. We went to a scan together, and in Sheffield, and we were doing Lea Sado for Death Stranding,
Mhm.
and there was a statue of Wonder Woman there, because the group that was there actually had all the Justice League costumes, so I got to see them up close,
Mhm.
and they're beautiful. Oh, they're just beautiful things. And I found out, Wonder Woman's bracelets actually aren't metal; they're actually like this really nice light foam, but it looks like metal. So I
Mhm.
put them on and I started playing around with it. And then next thing you know, he's got them on too and taking photographs. We were just having fun and laughing about it.
That's really cool.
And I got to meet some in my job at Sony. I got to meet a lot of really famous people who I really, really enjoyed and respect a lot. And that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. I feel like such a privilege to be there, with the team as well.
You always appreciate it. You
Mhm.
always try to be as I don't know, as grateful as you can, as forthright and just earnest as you can be. And I try not to be like a fanboy per se, but I definitely am like, hey, right.
Yeah.
Amy's a really, really good friend of mine, and I love talking to her. And through her, I've been able to meet a lot of really great people too.
Mhm.
And that's been great. And Matt Sophos, who's the writer for God of War, uh,
Mm.
along with Richard Galbert and Corey Barlog, awesome guys.
Mhm.
Uh, Rich and Matt are awesome to talk to. They're fun, creative people to work with. I hope I ever get a chance to work with them again directly. That would be a lot of fun. I work with them tangentially because I'm at VASG Studio, and they're over there at Santa Monica Studio. But it's still a lot of fun to be able to interact with them and talk to them. I got a chance to work with a lot of great artists as well. Like I said, Kevin Chen, even Brian Yam. He's an awesome painter too. Just as fantastic people who are just really top of the game.
How about Del Toro? Have you met Del Toro while you were working for Death Stranding?
No, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to meet him directly. Actually, no, I take that back. I did get a chance to meet him in Montreal. No, Toronto. We were in
Okay.
Toronto. So we went to Toronto to scan, and we went to the middle of nowhere, like this crazy like scan location where nobody was around.
Mm.
And
Okay.
Kojima was walking from his car to the station, and a fan stopped him. Was like, "Hey, Kojima!" Da, da, da. And after that, we were like, "Oh crap!" Because immediately after him, Del Toro, Guillermo del Toro was supposed to arrive,
Yeah.
and we were like, "Oh," so we had to basically make sure no one was around when he arrived. And he
Hmm.
came in, and he was so funny and so genuine and so generous. He was fantastic to um, be able to talk to. And we talked. I actually wanted to ask him a lot of questions about Pan's Labyrinth,
Yeah.
and it
Really
was
good
one
movie.
of the best things he said was, you know, sometimes I feel like I'm a genius and I've got this, and I'm on top of the world and I'm the best there ever is at this. And other times I feel like I'm a total fake and I should get out of the business. I should quit. Like, oh my God, are you serious? I feel that way too. It's like, how often do you feel that way? He's like, several times a day, both directions. It just runs up and down. I was like, oh my God. But he also said something wonderful in that the happy accidents you have during filmmaking can sometimes make your work a lot better. So embrace those challenges and try to find ways to make your accidents work for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. We went too early about work experience and stuff. There's like a couple of follow up character questions, character related ones.
I'm gonna
One.
paint while we talk, okay? So just
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Kristen said you should draw a cat. So
damn it. Yes, of course she did. Hi, Kristen.
make it look
Drop.
like it lives in Rezil's world. Just
Right,
kidding.
right. No,
Yeah.
I draw whatever she wants. She asks me whatever I need. So
Oh, by the way, there's like a follow up question about Ariel's face. It was it inspired by Hel? It's like a Nordic god of the underworld.
yes, I mean, uh, Hella was definitely one of the things you look at. just finding different strong female characters that work, and the underworld, Persephone, things like that. How you would design it if you were given that chance, and what you incorporate. Yeah, all that stuff is an influence. I would definitely wouldn't say that there's no. It's an isolation.
Mm.
Yeah.
Was it the only influence? No. There are a lot of influences when it comes to things like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So going back to Soul Reaver, if you had the chance to remake Soul Reaver, would there be anything in the game that you would completely redesign?
Completely redesigned. Yeah. Probably a lot of the enemies I would basically layer a lot more complexity into them, because we had to go very simple with a lot of designs. Some of the bosses probably I would redesign a little bit. I mean, not fully, but I would definitely like detail out some characters like Melchiah, who is made up of 1,000 dead bodies.
Oh my
Mm.
god.
And
Wow.
let me see if I have a picture of him real quickly. There was a sketch of Melchiah that's just awesome.
Mhm.
Just 1 second. Yeah, so I would I would definitely redesign those characters. Maybe the Seraphim too. I'd actually go in there and make them a little more detailed and armored like, and
Mhm.
just add to it. I wouldn't necessarily, when we say redesign, it's not necessarily where you would go. You'd actually like try to find the essence of that design and then bring that to the forefront.
Like more.
The
Well,
demons probably a redesign just for fun, just to have a different take on them.
okay. Like
Mm.
an update, something like that.
Yeah, an update more than anything else. That's exactly what it would be.
So follow-up question: when's the next Soul deck?
Yeah, I get this question on it every day. I wish I could. I wish it were up to me.
Yeah.
It's not. Um, but this might be a good time to announce that I'm actually doing a Patreon. So
Yeah, Matthias asked, like, could you please tell me more about your Patreon idea for Legacy of Kain and its content?
yeah, so let me talk about it right now, real quickly. So what I'm doing is I'm starting a Patreon. What I'm going to be doing is releasing artwork every month that I will draw and paint for Legacy of Kain related artwork that I
Mhm.
do. I'll also be releasing original sketches and designs for you to download and keep. Original designs you can have that some have never been seen before. So it's just going to be released as a monthly basis. Kind of a little treasure trove of like those drawings. I'm finally opening up the archives. One thing we'll also be doing is taking votes from people who are subscribed to my Patreon, and able to vote on merchandise we can create. So actually, I might create some T-shirts, might create some enamel pins, might create some actual posters and designs that we can actually create, get printed, very limited run. But you
No.
can pre-order those things once you kind of
I want,
come together.
I want your pins, please.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
we'd be selling sets, I think, for like $20 for 4 or 5. I think. That's just a general thought.
Mhm.
The actually, this now's a good time to actually go to symbols, because you were talking about that before.
Mm.
Uh, hang on just 1 second. Let me find this real quick. Oh yeah, here it is. Excuse me, my voice is starting to go a little bit. I'm gonna. One thing that we didn't talk about very much was symbols, but I'm gonna jump over to that one real quick. So the symbology of Legacy of Kain is really powerful. So the enamel pins, what we were thinking about doing would be like, Kain's symbol, Raziel's symbol, each of the
Yeah.
vampire lieutenants, and actually make those into pins you could have.
Mhm.
But the symbol design is actually something that is very powerful. Once you establish a symbol, you can use it, you can layer it all over the place. And the way that we come to these things is basically by understanding our shape design. Your shape design, your aesthetic is something you can actually bring into this. So one of your aesthetics is balancing form, large shapes, small shapes. And part of my design aesthetic is shaped from actually Filipino tattoos, Filipino weaponry,
Mhm.
those kind of things. So I grew up with this stuff. I grew up with understanding those shapes, the way the blade kind of thickens in one area and thins in the other and dances around. And that's what we would do with this. So what we would do is we would
Mhm.
take a shape, draw the general shape, and then take bites out of it to kind of give it rhythm and form. And you'd balance out the different points. So that's how Raziel's shapes and Kain's shapes came to be for their symbologies. part of the exploration is finding cool shapes and then like moving it around. This is called the sound glyph symbol, and we can make pins out of these things too for the Patreon.
Yeah. I
That
remember
looks
that.
You can
awesome.
see here, this is my worksheet, right? I would actually design shapes. We come up with things and then basically rearrange it. I actually came up with this shape in the lower left, and then basically you rearrange it into like one thing I thought, oh, it's a sound glyph, maybe like a note. And so we make it
Yeah.
into an actual note and actually surround it and that actually work. But not just the shape, not just a note, the gestalt is note, but the details and shapes are something different. They form like blades and like little shapes. So you would sit there and you draw something, you paint something, and you kind of take bites out of it and move it around and play with it.
Yeah.
And that's how you would get these kind of really cool shapes and forms. Sunlight glyph, and
Yeah.
one of my influences was Roger Dean, who did the cover of a lot of Asia's albums. He also does Roger Dean's like super prolific. He's done a lot of cool stuff, but his shape design is awesome. If you look at his actual shapes, they're sweet. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I looked it up. No, pretty cool.
Can we
and
type
Dynamic.
part
out
of
the
the way we find these shapes is this is the stone glyph here in the upper right. This is the fire glyph in the lower right. This was one we didn't use up here, but basically just using these kind of, it's a square, yes, that's stone, but also we're going to make it more aggressive. And same thing with flame and stuff like that. So that's how we find these shapes and symbols, and that's stuff that I would be like. Here are the symbols right now, all of the elemental symbols for the things we use. The force glyph was another one we came up with. Spirit, fire, water, those kind of things. Play with them. Force, ended up being a much more concentric explosion of shapes. But my worksheet for it was like this. Basically we're trying different shapes and rotating around. I love mandalas myself, so I'd
Yeah.
always create shapes and create forms. I actually love doing these kind of things, and then you design one thing and then you multiply it around to create a different shape, like a kaleidoscope. And
Yeah.
your design, it gets more and more complex, and sometimes you get too complex and you got to simplify. But that's okay.
Wow.
That process is super important. You have to go through this to get to this.
That looks
That's
really
design.
awesome. Yeah, that's
So,
awesome.
spectral realm, we're shifting a yin yang symbol with the elder god's eye. That's water, which is actually like rain, but actually a waterfall, a drop of water. So there's a lot of things that went into it. There's a lot of shapes, and
Yeah.
these are things that I'd want to make into enamel pins too, or create designs for. Um,
Yeah.
we designed some characters. I'm actually getting some high res images of the characters done in ZBrush. And so
Yeah.
like some busts, some print out some 3D busts and actually get those made.
Mhm.
So it's just a lot of like fun, exciting new things to create with, and then with the fandom to get back into Legacy of Kain and actually make some stuff that people would kill to get.
Yeah.
Would
Basically.
you
Absolutely.
would you
Already excited, honestly.
mhm.
Can't
Would you
wait.
want to share could you share the statue that you posted on Facebook?
The
Or
which one?
the statue? The one with Raziel. Is that free to share?
The statue of the I'll do you one better. I'll show you some other statues, like work in progresses for other toys that were being made at the time. I worked with those guys to actually do some corrections to make sure that they stayed on brand.
Mm-hmm. What are the scale of the statues?
Um, they start out pretty big, and then they get smaller. But in the case of the last one that was done, I can't remember the name of the company now, but it was that Raziel was huge. But so this was for BB Toys, I believe. This is Kain. Some of the articulate tests. One thing that was cool about this was I found out that the artists who did this were listening to the Soul Reaver soundtrack and they loved it as much as I did. When we heard Kurt's music, oh my god, I was like so inspired to draw this stuff and paint this stuff. It's great. It's so much
Holy
fun to
crap.
be able to do
Wow, that
this.
looks so cool.
Yeah, that one's so cool. I like
Oh,
that.
I want it. I want it. I just want it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if possible, what I want to do is
Mm-hmm.
build some of this stuff in ZBrush, and then we'll build 3D prints.
Mm-hmm. That's so badass. Damn it.
this is like part of the breakdown of what the toy company does for us. They're like, I don't know how this works. I'm like, well, here's the detail for it, and this is how it actually looks.
Mm.
They everybody who worked on high res Raziel hated us because they're like, this is so complex. So like, simplified. I'm like, no, more
Yeah.
complex. But Pre-Fallen Raziel is still my favorite figure because it looks so cool with
Wow.
like different
Yeah.
straps and stuff like that. And again, the technology for this is way beyond medieval, right? It's
Mm.
neo bondage is what I called it. And that kind of neo
Yeah.
bondage design was totally unique to Soul Reaver, which I love.
Yeah.
It's like taking Braum to the nth degree and then going even further with it with technologies that couldn't exist. And this is Raziel without the gold, so they paint him all red. We're like, well, we should bring the gold color up from the boots.
Mm. He also kind of reminds me of Spawn quite a bit.
Yeah. Everything's an influence.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of reminds me of something you'd see on a heavy metal cover.
Heavy metal, yeah, for sure. Where
Oh, I remember that stuff. Yeah.
I grew up reading heavy metal, and doing something. Duma was. There's a
Mhm.
funny story where I actually walked into a toy store and I saw Duma there. I'm like, hey, I designed this guy. And they didn't believe me. That's funny. One thing
Why?
they got wrong with Duma, though, is his chest
Mhm.
here. There's supposed to be a crow's skull here, a giant crow skull. So I would actually do this in ZBrush over and actually change all of this stuff and make it more like what I designed originally.
Hmm.
So I'm actually going to go through there and actually do some of that stuff and actually bring that back. I've got the original artwork for them too. I have so many sketchbooks, like I have to still scan in, but they're all there. It's all kind of fun.
Do you have any timeline when your Patreon's gonna be up, or is it already up for people to?
I'm planning on launching it in September, so it's my birthday present to myself.
I
'Cause,
was gonna say,
Hey.
yeah, next week. Just kidding.
yeah, it's gonna launch next week. Well, so basically, subscribers can choose different tiers for what they want to get.
Yeah.
But the highest tier ones will get the drawings and sketches and behind the scenes looks of the things that we have. So that stuff will be released and downloadable.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's in their best interest not to just post it on the internet and share it, because then there's no incentive for me to keep releasing this kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Exactly. There's no point. So
And
yeah, the
people,
long drought of wanting Soul Reaver and Legacy of Kain is gonna be over in like a week, baby. When your
right, and
Patreon comes up.
the thing is also is cool about it is that you get a chance to ask me what we want to make. If you wanted to design stuff for like a new Hilden or a new Soul Reaver 4 character or even an original boss fight, Kain versus Kaya or Kain versus the Circle, we can draw that stuff, and then it's all going to be available in monthly drawings and paintings that I'm going to do. So that's fine. I want to get back to the community that's really been so like loyal and just so really fantastic. All the fans have been so good.
Yeah.
And so just want to, and maybe monthly giveaways of like original sketches.
Ooh.
No.
Oh my
Decaf.
goodness.
Oh my god, decaf, no. Oh my gosh. Anyways.
The sketchbook, give them one. I did that once for some fans in England when I met, so that was fun.
You forgot to give me my sketch. Nah, just kidding. That's okay.
Yeah. There's like gameplay from Soul Reaver 2, I believe, where these little demons are ganging up on Raziel and biting him, and he's throwing them off, and eventually this big demon comes up and just fries all of them.
Man.
It's fun design stuff. The Grey Demon was my favorite design for demon designs because he ended up looking really cool. But so one thing that people didn't catch on to originally was the demons. One of the reasons they look like kind of technological is because they've been experimented on by the Hilden, who are also in the demon dimension.
Oh, we do have a question about that from Andrew. He was asking, like, did you have any thoughts on how the Hilden and the demon dimension would look like if Kain visited that area in a 6th game?
Sorry, can you speak up and say that again?
Sorry. Did you have any thoughts on how the Hilden and the demon dimension would look like if Kain visited that area in a 6th game?
Absolutely. Actually, what I wanted to do for the next Soul Reaver would have been to have Kain go into the actual Hilden dimension and see the giant city there. So one of the ideas I had for the city of the Hilden was that if there anything that's brought in the demon dimension is corrupted and actually warped, except for the demons that live there because they're native. The Hilden being dropped in the middle of that world would actually have to defend themselves and find ways to exploit their environment. So the Hilden are, if you don't know, they're like science gone without morals. They do science without morality. And so when they were brought there,
Mhm.
the outermost, it's like a giant concentric walled city, and the
Mhm.
outer walled people were the poor people, in the center were the wealthy ones, right? The higher ups in status.
Mhm.
And so what I was going to do was design the city so that they have these like they design with the technology these kind of shields that would protect them from being corrupted and be their bodies from being warped. But those shields, they didn't have anything to power it. Their technology is based on stealing life energy from the world. And
Mhm.
since the demon world is all corrupted, they can't steal that energy. So the only thing they can use to power their whole technology are their own bodies.
Oh.
So the the less important or the lower caste uh, Hilden are actually being used as living batteries. And as they die off, the shield gets weaker on the lower tiers and starts corrupting slowly, seeping inwards towards the center. So that puts a timeline on the Hilden being desperate to get back into our material world.
Mhm.
And what they would also do is they would possess the demons and experiment on them and send them back into the material world. So one of the things about my gray demon here was he was actually experimented on by the Hilden to harness lightning and energies and actually use that in his attack. And so I was going to have it where they're actually machines where you can see where whenever they possess somebody, it's not just one of them, it's a bunch of them, and they're all hooked up to
Mm.
machines that they use to possess people. Because yeah, to reaching through to our world takes a lot of energy. And so
Yeah.
everything, the doors, the walls, the windows, everything is powered by a living Hilden that's built into the wall and actually used as a living battery.
What gave you that what gave you the idea for this kind of narrative? That's really good. I really like that.
So part of it, I love Wayne Douglas Barlow. He
Oh
designs
yeah.
ecologies. He
Yeah.
designed real ecologies around worlds, and he said, "What if this? What if that?"
Oh.
For expedition, he
Mhm.
said, "What if there was no everything was blind? Everything is based on sound. His entire ecology is based on sound. So,
Mhm.
and when he designed Inferno, which is Dante's hell, he said, "What if everything is made of flesh? Everything is made of bones of the sinners. They're tortured into bricks, you know." And that was that methodology, more so than the actual individual examples, but the methodology of thought of saying, let's take one overlying thing like entropy and apply it to this world. Entropy is decay,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
So let's say this world is constantly decaying. Let's limit what you have as a power source. Asking these questions allowed us to create an ecology, and from the ecology, all your answers come. You know, so that's where my idea came from. I asked myself, well, what if I was if I was a demon dimension, what would that be like? Why would that be bad for me? Could I just fight demons? But what if the very air you breathe, the very energy of the sun itself would actually corrupt your body?
Oh.
That would be something that would create a timeline for you, like, oh, I got to get out of this world. I can't be in this world.
Mhm.
And so that would also create one thing. One of the themes of Legacy of Kain is there's no good and evil, right? There's points
Mhm.
of view, and you think you're on the side of right until you see the other how the other half lives. Then
Mhm.
your point of view shifts. Raziel's point of view shifts several times. What he thinks is good and evil, morality, right and wrong, right? He's a zealot. Raziel is nothing else than that, a zealot, and only by the end does he realize the balance of things that need to be
Mhm.
how things need to be set up as a balance. So
So. Mhm.
yeah, that's part of the idea.
So you think Raziel is not really a good guy or a bad guy? Because back then I thought he was kind of a good guy. Then suddenly he was like, oh wait, he looks like a bad guy right now. So it's like an anti-hero kind of thing. Like he's in the
Yeah,
middle.
flipping the script is important because as you grow up, your notions of pure good and evil change, right? You understand it's a point of
Yeah.
view.
Hmm.
That maturity is something we put in our games. That's because that's how Roswell's changes are almost like a growing child, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Hmm.
first you think good guy and bad guy, cowboys and Indians, but then you're like, oh wait, Indians were repressed, Indians were slaughtered. You know, cowboys were bad, and you're like, oh wait, cowboys are just trying to eke out a living, And so
Mhm.
it goes back and forth. You learn that there's subtleties that you didn't see before.
Uh-huh.
Oversimplification is very um, is very childish. That's not the way it should be. And so I was going to have it where if would you see the Hilden's point of view, that they're actually Hilden who are trying to use old vampire techniques to actually incorporate into the world and actually live in harmony with the world, because that's what the ancient vampires did. They live in harmony with their world. And I was going to have Hilden there actually trying to live in harmony with their world, and they're heretics because they're
Mhm.
not using science to dominate their world. So Cain would learn those subtleties about the Hilden society too. It's not all of them are trying to kill Cain or get back to the world. Some of them are actually have different points of view, and he would
Mhm.
learn about
Okay. So we have another question from Laura. She said, "What's your favorite play area in Soul Reaver, both between excluded and confirmed zones?
that.
Do you have any favorite?"
Yeah. So I I love the waterfall, the Lake of the Damned, just because no one said we could build that, and we built it.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's impossible. I mean,
Yeah.
it shouldn't have been possible. It was so much work. You have no idea. It was so
Mhm.
much work because we didn't have the tools that we have today for making 3D. Every single face that was on the environment had to be placed and then rotated. So you had to
Mhm.
place if you had a say a quad that was a face, you would have to map both triangles individually until
Mhm.
they matched. And so when you mapped the scrolling textures for the waterfall, you had to map every single face individually. So we had two interns that were doing all the mapping um,
Okay.
for everything. It was crazy. They did so much work, but they helped us so much. It was great.
Mhm.
So yeah, but that was one of my favorite areas. I really love the 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 final area that Raziel goes through
Mhm.
for the Mobius's time machine,
Mhm.
because I got to use a lot of textures that were discarded. I got to reuse those, repurpose those that were painted, beautifully done.
Mhm.
I like the drowned abbey as an actual like level because it's fun to jump and glide. I like
Mhm.
the idea of Silence Cathedral, but the puzzles on that one get to you after a while. I love the design of it though. I love uh, what was it? Zephon's room. It's one
Mhm.
of my favorite rooms because it's crazy. Yeah. Oh, I love Milkaya's area too. I just like them all. They're all like Milkaya's area is cool because it has like that pit that constantly starts opening up and showing it's like meat grinders everywhere. It's awesome.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
So there's another question for you. Silas said like since the Zephonim are inspired by insects and the silence cathedrals look like a hive, do the Zephonim share a hive mind actually?
Do the Zephonim share a hive mind?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So part of the idea was insectoid, but we also do. But spiders aren't insects, technically speaking. Spiders are arachnids. But we took the insectoid idea and we just kind of played with it. Um, I don't think we necessarily had a hive mind per se, but almost like a hive sensibility more than anything else. So they aren't like drones. They're more like high apex predators that are living in a what's it called? What's the word for that? Kind of a collective. So they're more like a collective of insects that
Hmm.
are symbiotic and not parasitic. And there's no
Oh, I see.
so they're basically helping each other out. Um, and Zephon was absorbing his body was becoming the cathedral. The cathedral is becoming him, and they're becoming like guests, symbiotic guests in his body.
Hmm. Okay. Um.
Slua.
Wait. There's still some questions here.
Yeah. Barry asks, how did the Soul Reaver design change between games? It looks much like Blood Omen 1 design in Soul Reaver 1
Horror one.
before it changed to the iconic design in Soul Reaver 2.
I
So,
guess
repeat the last part of that question.
I think we
Sorry.
already had this question a while ago,
Yeah, pretty
or maybe
much.
not. Yeah. He asked like, how did Soul Reaver design change between games? It looks much like Blood Omen One design in Soul Reaver One before it changed into iconic design in Soul Reaver Two. I think we've already covered this a while ago, right?
Well, so part of the idea is that
Mhm.
Shifter, yeah, established a lot of the look, and then we basically kind of shoehorned it into Blood Omen. But we put it far enough away that it wasn't slave to it. We could
Mhm.
just take it as like spice and just sprinkle it over the design.
Okay.
Wow,
Showing,
tattoos.
I'm showing tattoos because this shows the importance of symbology. People who get this stuff, they uh, they love the series so much that they show off the tattoos, and like I'm really deeply appreciative of anybody who gets our designs and the tattoos.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
It's super cool. I'm gonna go back to painting real quick because my voice is getting hoarse.
Yeah, that's it.
Really sorry. It's like
No, no,
almost
that's fine.
midnight.
I'm okay.
So there's another question here. So a lot of fans wish for a remake or reboot in order to enjoy these designs in higher graphic quality and introduce the franchise to newer generations. What are your thoughts about this? I guess you already answered this, and
That's what Patreon's for. Basically, is to kind of explore this stuff and get it in high res. We're gonna do
okay.
some, you know, some really professional ZBrush on it,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and we're gonna get some designs done, and we're gonna print them out, and we'll share those and see
Mm-hmm.
what that would look like in high res.
So technically, this more for the Patreon content, right?
That's part of what it is. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I can beat on IDOS's door all day or Square Enix's,
Mm-hmm.
but if they don't see the numbers, they're not going to do it because Dead Sun was their very expensive way of realizing they don't understand the series
Mm-hmm.
um, as well as they think they do. And so it's and even Malsgoth, the multiplayer game,
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of things that I thought were actually kind of far off the mark in terms of the way they approach some of the designs because they and so the for me, unless I was in charge of it, I feel like I wouldn't necessarily want to see a reboot or a, I don't mind if they were to try to redo it, but it it just requires a lot of changes. Gameplay is different nowadays. No one settles for block puzzles and stuff like that anymore. And also, I think that
Mm-hmm.
there's there aren't only Amy and I are and maybe a couple of other people are the ones who really understood the story and from every intrinsic point of view, like every little like detail about it, because we lived those designs, we lived those crazy days, and we did our best to basically incorporate that in and
Mm-hmm.
layer meaning into everything. But yeah, like I said, if someone wants to do it, more power to them. I wish I could be more influential on Crystal Dynamics and on Square Enix and get them into it. But maybe by doing this Patreon, we can make our voices heard.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Oh,
If they see some cool designs and get into it, and I mean, maybe we could Deadpool it,
yeah. Daniel, sorry about a while ago. The question about Soul Reaver design change between games. I think it's all about the Soul Reaver design itself. I'm sorry. Let me
Oh, the
just
Soul
write.
Reaver itself, which changed.
Yeah,
Sure.
like how it looks much like BO1 and design in Soul Reaver 1 before it changed to the iconic design in Soul Reaver 2. Something like that.
So we had better technology. I mean, honestly, what could we build in PlayStation? We had particles for the original Soul Reaver. We
Hmm.
couldn't do a lot of the stuff that we did in subsequent versions. Technology improved. That allowed us to make a more resolved version of the Reaver. Um, we wanted to do some really cool design right off the bat, but you work with what you're given. You work with the tools at hand,
Hmm.
not the tools you wish you could have. You wish you could build. I mean, if they can't, at a certain point, they stop building tools for you, and so you have to like kind of
Yeah.
take what you get.
Okay. Here's another question from Brandy. He said, "Do you think there would have been a sequel to Soul Reaver 1 if you had the ability to keep the original ending?"
Yeah, I think this would have been a sequel. I think it would have been very different
Hmm.
to get the original ending, where basically Kain dies and Raja kills all the vampires. You can always kind of find some way to, keep some of the vampires alive or find a different way of doing it. Or just localize the blast so that it didn't kill all the vampires. Because Raziel was supposed to sound the giant sounding pipes in the cathedral and kill all of the vampires. But yeah, definitely not. It wouldn't have been the same, but I think we still could have had one.
Hmm.
I mean, never underestimate the ability for people to say, "Hey, we made money off that. Let's make more." Like the
Yeah.
Matrix, I don't think was supposed to have sequels, but it made so much
Matrix.
money.
Yeah, that's true. So, could you tell us about Soul Reaver subsequent entries, especially the third entry, LOK Defiance, since you were assigned as an art director on the project?
Yes. What do they want to know?
Could you tell us about Soul Reaver subsequent entries, especially the third one,
Okay.
Legacy of Kain Defiance, since you were
Sure.
assigned as art director? Yeah.
Sure. So with Defiance, we had a chance to make Kain a playable character, which I was totally ecstatic when I heard that. Um,
Yeah.
so as an art director, I had to step back from individual contributions.
Mhm.
So instead of painting the characters and making cool stuff there, I had to kind of step back and do murals. Was the most I could do,
Mhm.
and basically design the. Actually, I can show some murals. Let me do that real quick while I'm talking about this. So
Just
this
some.
is
Mhm. Okay, go ahead.
okay. So yeah, as an art director, I had to step back and I had to make the team my tools. We talked about this earlier today or yesterday for you guys. We talked about how artists becoming tools, stepping back and actually just being the stakeholder that makes it, tells everyone how it should be, is what I did. So we took some of the ideas that we had and actually started pushing more on, uh, you know, more on the demon designs and being able to pursue the more of the Seraphim designs,
Mhm.
and really being able to push like what was possible in the game.
Mhm.
Um, but it also meant that I had to stop. I couldn't paint textures for the characters. That's why Raziel looks a little different. I
Mhm.
had to, just basically step back and take care of a lot of different fires that were going on. What else can I tell you? The Defiance, because Kain was playable, we had our chance to really play with like the combo system, move the camera around, just really try different things that we were curious about.
Mhm. Yeah.
This is the original drawing that I did. I just kind of set up with you know with less color, actually, like, more wear and tear. Originally, Vorder had a dagger in his hand, and I thought that was maybe that's just a little too gruesome, so I took it out of his hand.
Mhm.
I may have put it back in, I forget, but yeah, yeah, just I know it's a relationship of these two guys, master and apprentice, I suppose, but
Mhm.
it's kind of ambiguous. Deformation of the pillars,
Yeah.
the curse of the vampires.
Mhm.
Hmm.
There's this one question, decab, from Laura. She
All
said,
right.
"Is
Yeah.
uh, are you glad Soul Reaver 1 didn't end the way, didn't end that way? Sorry, sorry, guys."
Original Blood Omen. Excuse me. Yeah, and see what that's like. Yeah, it's cool. Um, Let me do this real quick. This is one that people liked a lot. So I did this mural for Soul Reaver, and that was King William and Kain fighting back in time, basically, and fought each other with Soul Reavers, which created the time, which allows whenever two Soul Reavers appear in the same timeline, they
Mhm.
can actually change the timeline. So it's pretty cool that way. One of the cool designs one of the ways I resolved William's design, if you remember the Nemesis from the original Blood Omen, it was a red armor with like these crazy black horns coming out of it. I thought, well, that was really dumb. I'm not supposed to make that. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, why does he look like, demon armor? It's like just. So one thing I thought about was like, hey, roses. Roses have thorns and they're red. So basically, I made King William like the king of roses, and so I put the horns that come out were actually thorn designs that came out of the rose, and that actually made way more sense than trying to make him into some kind of weird, demonic king, because it wouldn't make sense for him to be William the Just and look like a demon.
Yeah. Who actually had that idea to have horns in his armor?
These are original sketches for murals I did Soul Reaver 2. Designs that, I actually ended up giving the originals of these away to friends. So I think Barry has one. Barry's out there.
Yeah.
Original design. Just draw these things that in by themselves and then piece it all together. Yeah, that's basically how it goes.
Yeah. So we have another question from another Laura Panico. Daniel, your personal opinion about a possible closing sequel of Legacy of Kain saga. Would you like Raziel to return so he's still alive in the Reaver, or is he excluded from the story?
That's a tough one. If you'd asked me like 5-10 years ago, I would have said Raziel's story is done and that's it. But I love the character. He's awesome. So nowadays, I'd be more likely to say, hey, let's bring him back. Let's find a way to have him come out of the sword, maybe for a limited time or something like that, or at least be guidance to the next. Because the way I would do the storyline next, I would actually try to find new vampires to become the Pillar Guardians. Yeah. And during the time of the vampire purging after Raziel was killed. So that's where I would kind of go with it. And I think that having Raziel in it, in some form, maybe a previous version of him would be cool. But I mean, I like to think that his story is done just because it was really a cool story. It was circular. It was the Ouroboros basically was a symbol of the snake eating its tail, and that's basically how Raziel's tail ended. And that's basically it's complete. But I would like to revisit him. I would like to see him again somehow. Because he's just a cool character.
Yeah. But I think Ouroboros means like unending, I guess. So
True.
Yeah, does it mean that being a pillar guardian, I mean there's gonna be another one. That's the one that's unending, the chain.
Sure. It could mean that. It's open to interpretation, what unending or never ending means. His cycle of birth, death, rebirth, being absorbed into the blade, that's all part of his story that kind of circles into itself.
Yeah.
But that's not to say he couldn't he couldn't revisit that in some way, some creative way. I think it's possible.
What if like Decaf, just out of curiosity, what if like they give a green light for this, but the next pillar guardian is like a female vampire?
I actually want that.
Whoa.
I would actually want that. I would actually want to have the next pillar guardian be a female, and actually have a female character in Soul Reaver. That would be fun as a lead.
Yeah, that would be dope. That would be dope.
Yeah, I wanted to have it where Kain might actually, meet her and talk to her, and she wouldn't be. The thing about becoming a pillar guardian is, it doesn't happen instantaneously without any kind of effort. She would have to be like purified by the Reaver and set up, with it, and then, just all kinds of fun ideas. Like one thought was have Kain give her his earring, and so you can summon me, if you need help. And
Wow.
that's what the earring is. It's a summoning ring for Vorador. But Kain kept it, and if he gives it to someone else, and says at some point you might need my help, summon me for the final battle. That would be freaking cool to have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that gonna be OG?
Well, these kinds of things this is what I think about too. Like, I think we should definitely have fan homages and things like that, and then discuss it with the fans, talk to them about it, get them excited about it, and see what they think, and then make some of it. Let's
Mm.
design it. Let's get it out there. If they want to hear our voices, you know, by requesting it, let's let them hear our voices by creating stuff that people get excited about.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I think this is the last question in the comments from Saad Hamil or Jamil. I'm sorry if I butchered your name as well. A lot of the Legacy of Kain series involve revisiting areas from previous games with vastly different art styles. How did you approach redesigning the areas and iconography from Blood Omen 1 when you revisited those locations in Soul Reaver 2 and Defiance?
So part of what I did was I thought of it like this: if Blood Omen was the TV version, we're making the movie version. So it's going to be more mature. It's going to have a new sensibility to it, but while at the same time feeling familiar.
Mm.
So if you look at the Star Trek movies, right? Star Trek movies are a lot more cooler design versions of the original TV version, if that makes sense. So that's my approach to it. Basically, say we're making the movie version.
Mm-hmm.
So that was basically my aesthetic for it. Say, hey, let's make something that has designs that you recognize, designs you know. There are some things in Blood Omen that I didn't agree with, like the original, that
Mm.
I took a real issue with their design wise. I felt like it was lazy design, and
Mm-hmm.
so I went back through it and thought, let's take that away and like make it a thoughtful design. And you should be doing that anyway in your own work, but it's just something as an exercise that was fun to do with Blood Omen.
Mm-hmm. Um, there's a last question before we like wrap this up because I want to cover everything. So one of the guys was asking about how did the story arc start, but we already covered that at the start of this demo. So I'm gonna go to Andrew. He said like oh wait, I missed that question. Wait. What if the shards of Raziel's soul were used to produce a new uncorrupted vampire race? That's actually cool. Well,
So the idea of the corruption,
mhm,
if you guys don't know, is that every vampire that Cain created using a part of his soul was corrupted because his soul was corrupted.
mhm,
Mm.
yeah,
Part of the idea that I would have for the next Soul Reaver would actually be having, because in this one he's purified because of the Reaver, because of
mhm,
Raziel's sacrifice. He's purified now. He can make pure
Mm.
vampires. But
mhm,
also the Reaver's purified. That's different from the way it's ever been before.
mhm,
So
okay,
there's something different happening there. So one thought was that he could actually go back, and if he found the right vampire, he could actually purify that vampire instead of eating its soul.
mhm,
And so that was the idea that I had for making new Pillar Guardians,
mhm,
is actually having the new purified Reaver, purified Raziel, purified Cain, be able to create those new vampires.
okay,
Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it does make
absolutely.
sense. Yeah,
Yeah. That's my thought. I mean, and again, I like I said, I agree. I think that's the way to go.
mhm,
Let's have that happen.
yeah. Would you include that in the Patreon that you're gonna do right now?
The-
Would you consider? Yeah.
yeah. I would definitely consider that. I would definitely consider like let's design it. Let's go in there and like Julio make something cool happen. Like let's start a Discord or a Twitch or something like that and talk about it and
Yeah.
let's really open it up and let's have fun designing it. Like guys, it wouldn't just be me. If there are
Mhm.
other artists who want to get involved and actually try stuff, I would happy to see their designs and kind of oversee it as kind of an art director to that.
Yeah.
And because as a stakeholder, I would say I have a deep understanding of the storyline and themes behind it,
Mhm.
and I think I could help to like shepherd the designs to keep them, you know, fan approved, to keep them, uh, you know, to to have sensibilities that artists would like, that we would like as artists.
Yeah.
It'd be fun, a fun exercise. It'd be fun to be able to do it. And again, maybe we could Deadpool it.
I would
Okay.
wanna I would wanna do a fan art one day. I'm gonna show you. But yeah, maybe after this year. So decab before we wrap up this stream, do you have any Discord where you guys could talk about all this stories that you're gonna do, and like could you also share the Patreon link?
Yeah, I'll send links up
Okay.
definitely.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm sort of new to Discord, but I'm definitely getting into it and kind of learning about like how it works, and same with Twitch and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I've been super busy with other games I've been working on, but lately I've been just really coming back to this and really wanting to connect with the fans and make more Soul Reaver stuff. So, and just kind of find ways to have involvement with it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like for more questions about Soul Reaver and more
Keep it alive.
suggestions, yeah, keep it,
Keep it
or
alive.
I guess channel it through Daniel's Patreon when it's up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I
Yeah.
Yeah.
have a last question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if you didn't design Soul Reaver and had the chance to design some other game that's also iconic, what would it be?
Metal Gear.
Metal Gear?
Oh
That's
yeah, definitely. No question.
Yeah, I freaking love Metal Gear. I love the designs of Metal Gear. I love all of
Mhm.
the technology of it. It was just fun to design. Or Battle Chasers.
Oh
If they
Battle
yeah.
do,
Chasers.
Yeah.
yeah, Battle Chasers. Oh, you know what? That other game. With the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
Darksiders.
Darksiders?
Darksiders, yeah.
I
Yeah.
would totally do Darksiders. I would do
Yo-
Darksiders as like a God of War style game with a camera over the shoulder.
mhm.
Mm. Oh, yeah, yeah. That would
That
be
would make it
cool.
so damn delicious. Oh my god, I would love
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
The doing the Four Horsemen would be so badass. I mean, I love the design. I love all of the characters. I love everything about it. Yeah,
Mhm.
and to me, okay, so the way I think about it, guys, is Witcher feels like a Blood Omen's spiritual successor, and Darksiders feels like a Soul Reaver spiritual successor because one's more action oriented, one's more RPG oriented,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Damn.
so. Witcher 2 would be fun. Those guys have amazing designs.
You know
Love
what?
Witcher.
You know what, Decap? I was like imagining if Soul Reaver is updated right now, and would you consider working with Joe Mad? Like if
Oh
you pick
yeah, I'd
it up.
love to work with Joe Man.
Okay. Like if I don't know if this is possible. If what's this? I forgot his studio, something Syndicate. I forgot. If they pick it up, would you like? Yeah, sure. Let's make this game.
For
And
sure, for
yeah,
sure.
wow, that was so cool. I'm clapping
Joe
right
Mad would be the one guy I would like be like, yeah, he understands what his design sensibilities are so good that
now. Hmm.
yeah, I wouldn't have any problem with that.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Joe Med stuff. Totally.
Oh, me too, me too.
Oh yeah, I was influenced by Joe Med.
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably so. I mean, Joe Mad for me and Arthur Adams,
Arthur
other
Adams.
one,
Hmm.
great artists.
All right. Oh, I have a
Yeah, if
last
you look at
question.
Arthur Adams stuff,
Okay,
yeah,
I have one last question for you. Do you actually have a team right now, like your previous 3D people or co-designers who are in it with you right now, doing this reimagining stuff?
I so I'm hiring artists with my own money right now to kind of help me out with some of this stuff. I know
Hmm.
some artists, and I'll be like, hey, if I use some money, can you do this for me? It's kind of like that. Or I'm like
Hmm.
getting them like partially percentage of the way there, then I finish it off.
Okay.
So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm just kind of collaborating with friends and stuff,
Hmm.
or hiring artists that I know, um, or paying for stuff that I see that just out of my own pocket. So that's kind of where I'm at right now with it.
I see. So you
Yeah.
heard that, guys. If you want this to keep going, you should support Decab in his Patreon, and we'll
Well,
be
yeah. I
tweeting.
mean,
Yeah. Hmm.
and like I said, if you're an artist and
Hmm.
you want to design some stuff and you want to get in on it, it's like just let me know. We can talk.
Oh, I can design stuff for free for you, Decab. Don't worry. I just want your
Jedi
sketch.
trust me.
I want your sketches. I've been asking for them 2 years ago. Anyways, so oh yeah, we're gonna wrap this up, guys. But I just want to ask where's the cat, Decab? So where's the cat?
Oh,
You're
the
supposed
cat.
to, yeah, you were supposed to draw a
Hold on,
cat.
real quick. I'll just Kristen's cat. I forgot.
Yeah, I'm sorry
Yeah.
about that. Yeah, so about the Patreon and all the other links, I will be talking to Danielle about it, and we will be posting it here. And also, we'll be posting this video on our YouTube channel. So again, I would announce that we have a YouTube channel called Brushpoint, and it's all in Filipino except the ones that are art related, like time lapse and process videos. And the interview with Danielle, it's in English, and we'll be posting it there. And all the other like Patreon or Discord or whichever links Danielle would want to include, we'll be putting it on the bio. So don't worry, guys.
We got you covered. Yep.
Yeah, we got you covered. You won't miss anything.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
everything. I
No,
really
Yeah.
appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much for
yeah. Thank
giving
you.
us this opportunity to interview you about Legacy of Kain and all that.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. It was a lot of fun. I love talking about the game to fans.
Hmm.
I hope people got stuff out of it and enjoyed themselves.
Yeah. We're just drawing Rachel's future cat. Maybe he's in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
bus. Who knows? It might
So
be
yeah,
like yeah.
yeah. So yeah, let's wrap this
I'll take
up,
away his
and I guess
jaw. I'm taking off his lower jaw.
Okay. Is this like Raziel's
Soul cat.
soul pet? Yeah, exactly. What if like the sword, like the Reaver, turns into a cat, right, and like runs away and
Cat
like
Reaver.
master? Yeah, kind
Wouldn't that be something?
of. Ah, that would be something for me. I'm a cat person, so yeah. Or maybe turn it into a corgi or something. I'm
It
sorry.
definitely turned into a corgi.
Oh
So
man.
I'll always draw a corgi when people ask.
Yeah.
Cool. You make a masked cat. How about that? You can
Probably.
that's actually very what do you call it? It's very timely because the corned beef 19.
Yeah. Hmm.
So there you go. You can,
What if like Decab you dress Neji up as Raziel?
that'd be fun. Yeah, he
Yeah.
would hate that. He's not a cosplay corgi. I'll tell you that right now. He's one of those guys that's like, not wearing this.
He'll just like sit in one corner probably. Yeah.
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 so. Yeah, I'm just gonna take this opportunity again to thank everyone who watched, who dropped
Yeah.
by, gave us likes, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you guys so much. Yeah,
Thank you
we're wrapping
guys.
up.
Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Thank you guys.
Thank you again, Dan, for yeah, for this
Yeah,
Yeah.
interview and
anytime.
demo.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it, everybody. Thank you so much. It's great talking
Yeah,
to you.
Yeah.
and again, I am Salongganisa
Yeah. And I'm Kabukicat, and that's
with
the
Daniel Cabuco, and
yeah.
this is Brushpoint Live. Thank you guys so much for dropping by. Peace. Check out our next ones coming soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.